Howdy do, viewers! Welcome back to Manic Media Dream, where we'll be ranking all 6 Scream movies, with Scream 5 being our victim for the evening. Using a bias-limiting slasher media rubric exclusive to this channel, we'll dish out some points on how well Scream 5 does as a slasher flick in comparison to its counterparts. For previous rankings, head over to my channel and check out the Scream Movie Rankings playlist, or click the link at the top right so you can get started at the beginning to see how your favorite Scream movies have fared so far. Horror had gone through many changes by the time the 20s rolled around, with psychological horror dramas being given the limelight over slasher films that had ruled the box office in the 80s and 90s. That's not to say that slasher flicks have faded out, just that there's room in the market for a well-executed slasher where you put a person in a costume that's easy enough for Spirit Halloween and Party City to replicate, hand them a unique weapon that's phallic but also sharp enough to draw blood. Keep in mind, this weapon should also be easy for Spirit Halloween and Party City to replicate, and advertise it as a modern-day slasher that's similar to the slasher series of a time the target audience wishes they could experience firsthand. And that's exactly what Scream 5 did. And given its box office performance of making more than 5 times its budget, there's clearly room for Ghostface to reign in this decade just as he did in the late 90s. But revenue aside, let's take a look at the actual movie and its place in not only the Scream franchise, but the slasher world at large. Can Scream 5 offer something new to slashers in the 20s now that it's no longer a trending horror subgenre? Will it stand on its own as a slasher revival with a whole new set of characters that are still tied to the original film series? Or will it have viewers pining for previous entries? Let's see if we can find out in 1, 2, 3, 4, Scream 5. Now this was a revival and sequel that had everyone hyped, whether it was from original fans back in the day or new fans who had discovered the series on streaming platforms, and everyone in between and beyond. I mean, it took a whole other 11 years to make this one, and to be completely honest, a lot of fans weren't expecting another Scream movie after Scream 4 had underperformed at the box office and Wes Craven had passed away. Throw in the Weinstein scandal, and this franchise honestly should have been as dead as Casey Becker in the first Scream movie. But when miracles happen, one should be grateful, and you best believe I was first in line at the movie theaters to watch this in my Ghostface getup. Look at me looking all cute and stuff. And while this personally was not my favorite Scream movie, I'm curious to see what the slasher rubric has to say. Kill count. Honestly, I was expecting a lot more kills. The movie was pretty graphic and brutal, but it only had 8 kills, which is literally like one more kill than Scream 1, but it doesn't really compare that well to some of the more brutal Screams, and with the math I've been doing so far, it's gonna be a 3. Creative kills. They really dropped the ball on this one. Everybody pretty much got stabbed or shot in a way that had already been done in the franchise before. If it happens the first time, it can be original. If it happens in sequels, and I've been staying consistent with this since the first Scream, it loses its touch the more it happens from one sequel to the next, and by Scream 5 and an 11-year jump later, it's going to feel more rehashed than it is subversive. I should give it a 1, but I'll give it a 2, because Sam stabs Richie like a bajillion times in the end. I'm pretty sure she also like stabs him through the face or something like that, so that was pretty cool. They honestly would have gotten a 3 or 4 had they let Amber die after she caught on fire, because I don't think that's been done before. The fact that she got shot, then caught on fire, then got shot again was just bad. Should have let hell have her. Oh well, I stand by the 2. Thrilling chase scenes. There really wasn't one. Or maybe I'm missing something? I mean, I guess there was sort of one, like that scene where Tara's in a wheelchair and Ghostface is just walking behind her. It was creative enough to garner a 1 and not a 0, but that's the best that can be done right now. Realism. Off the bat, let's deduct a bit for the Amber getting shot, catching on fire, and then getting shot again. Cool. Now that that's out of the way, let's see what the rest of the movie has in store for us. To be completely honest, this movie did have a lot going for it as far as realism goes. Sidney Prescott having a gun? Check. Gale and Dewey not being together? Check. You don't go through that much trauma and end up together in the end. Sad, but true, and I love that the filmmakers went this route. A character that survived in the previous film but wasn't physically present in the sequel right after, aka Kirby, aka Hayden Panettiere? Check. Something about that is so real. Just because somebody survives in a horror movie doesn't mean they have to be hanging around in the sequel waiting to catch a knife in the back. It's subversive and fresh as it should be. It's giving Nightmare on Elm Street 2 vibes, where we knew Nancy might have survived, but she wasn't really around for 2, because when people come back, we all know what happens. See Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Regardless, we're getting off track. High schoolers getting radicalized by the internet? Check. It happens to this day. I'll give it a 4. Cast. Remember when I said the new teenage cast of Scream 4 succeeded because they played their characters well and weren't pretentious, awkward, or appeared to be out of place? It's exactly the opposite in Scream 5. The cast seems disjointed, like the actors and actresses were rushed into production or something. The chemistry is lacking. Nobody in this movie was worth caring about except for Tara, and that's only because she was the only opening scene girl to survive the film. Also, Meg Ryan's son was so wishy-washy as Richie, and this is coming from a Meg Ryan's son's fan. Like, super annoying. And then there's the Sydney replacement, Sam Carpenter. After having watched Scream 6, it's pretty obvious that Melissa Barrera is a charming, talented actress who has some serious range with drama and comedy. The only problem? That serious range is drowned out by poor direction, because what the heck was even Sam's character doing? Aside from staring off into space and throwing off the pacing of the film, Sam is just not a great Sydney replacement in Scream 5. Yes, I understand she has trauma, and that's why some fans can write it off as why she was so disjointed and different from her Scream 6 version, but Sydney was also traumatized in Scream 1 before the killing started, and had other aspects of her to root for. And before y'all come for me in the comments, I do agree that Sam's character improves in Scream 6. But we're not there yet. From Chad being super insignificant, I literally didn't even know who he was in the movie until he got stabbed and was left to die in the grass, and that West guy from The Wallows seemingly simply being there because he was in 13 Reasons Why, the cast just didn't mesh. It really just seemed like they were all waiting for the director to say cut so they could drive to their other creative projects and obligations. 'Twas not it at all. Wednesday was awesome, and Amber really channeled her inner Stu Macher with that twist. Motive. I actually liked the motive. I didn't love the motive, but I liked it. A lot. Like a lot. Two people bond over their love for horror on the internet and decide to ruin a few lives? That happens on Reddit every day. Except instead of stabbing, people on Reddit just mass report people they don't agree with on a subreddit with "get them help and support" until Reddit Care Resources reaches out thinking you're suicidal because of disingenuous spamming. Yeah, Reddit is literally cursed. On top of that, the movie also name drops that Amber and Richie met on a subreddit.
I met Richie on the Stab subreddit.
So points for that, because to be honest, and this ties back to the realism, if ever there was a social media platform that would lead to the killings of people for as superficial a reason as fans not being happy that better sequels for movies weren't being made, it would 183% be Reddit. Mass shootings are for Facebook. Death threats and suicide-enabling bullying is for Twitter. But Reddit? Reddit is a good mix of both. Equal parts handing out death threats and equal parts following up on those death threats. Tragic. On top of that, fans have been known to be responsible for reboots and revivals making a comeback ever since Dead Like Me had a reboot movie in 2009, Arrested Development had a fourth, followed by a fifth, season in 2013, and Veronica Mars had an infamous crowdfunded movie released in 2014 that was eventually followed up by a season 4 that I personally choose to not acknowledge. It was very much in line with the lengths fans will go to for sequels in a franchise to live up to their standards, and in this case, Richie and Amber made sense. I'll give it a 4. Horror, humor, balance. Why do I say horror so weird? I honestly don't remember laughing during this movie at all, except when Act 3 started. Gail and Sydney had me cracking up with how sick of this Ghostface nonsense they were in general, and Amber's welcome to Act 3 was sinister black comedy gold. Even Richie's "it's Ghostface" line was meta funny. But there definitely was not a balance. On top of that, it wasn't that scary of a movie either, and I blame the pacing. What should have been building suspense, i.e. Tara's kill attempt in the beginning, Wes being pursued by Ghostface, Wes's mom being killed, etc., would often run too long and take the horror and suspense out of it, where at that point, you were just waiting for the kill to happen just so you could move the story along. I'll give it a 3 because of the OG character saving the movie, plus Amber. Also, this analysis of this movie is making me realize that I really like Amber as a character. Again, in Act 3. Before that, she's kinda whatever. Anyway. Brutality. Not even a question. 5 out of 5 for Brutality. Ghostface breaks a leg. No, literally, he breaks Tara's leg. Almost slices and dices her to death. And oh yeah, stabs her in the frickin' hand. Like, through it. Ew. Gross. And let's not forget the spray of blood from when Liv gets shot, Amber catching on fire, and Richie getting slaughtered. They really sold the Brutality. I'd give it a 10 out of 5 if I could. Dialogue. The dialogue was good, although it captured characters like Sydney, Gail, and Dewey better than it did the newbies.
Do you have a gun?
I'm Sydney Prescott. Of course I have a gun. What do you think? Trap.
Rule of surviving a stab movie. Never answer the...
I'm bored.
Wait!
You have to shoot them in the head, or they always come back.
Randy's niece was just Randy Jr. Like, they literally just handed her his lines.
Killer is writing his own version of Stab 8, but doing it as a requel.
Chad.
Listen up, Ugly or Michael Myers. It was a summer fling, all right? It meant nothing.
Again, why was he there? Wes? I literally don't even know why this kid was even relevant. He was so bland. Like, yikes. I don't even remember him saying anything. All he did was shower and die. Tara's lines were fantastic, and her references to previous movies made it seem like she would get along with Kirby from Scream 4 really well.
The Babadook. It's an amazing meditation on motherhood and grief.
Well, it's elevated horror.
Seen stab.
Once?
Amber's exchange with Mindy in the basement was actually so well done and had me second guessing my killer predictions.
How do you know I'm not the killer? Because I am.
For whatever reason, I thought Kevin Williamson had written Scream 5 and had really lost his touch, but turns out it was some other guy, so I'll go easy on the dialogue. Nothing too quotable, aside from Welcome to Act 3, which I've referenced more times in the movie's kill count number. I'll give it a 3. Pacing. Awful. The suspense scenes ran long enough that they wouldn't be suspenseful anymore. Any scenes with the new teens didn't have the same gravitas as scenes with the OG cast, which wasn't an issue with Scream 4. Like, the quality between the teens in this movie carrying a conversation and moving the plot along and the new cast of teens in Scream 4 is astounding. There were way too many times in this movie that I was just waiting for it to be over. 1 out of 5. The tally points equal to a 29 out of 50, which is a 58% and an F. Wow. I'm gonna let my bias in a little bit and say that honestly, the movie wasn't that bad. But it goes to show that even a horrible Scream movie is a fantastic Scream movie. To be fair, it's a gateway slasher entry for a younger generation who can get a taste of the 90s without having to cringe every time they see a landline on the screen. I'm not gonna lie, I am a little bit worried about Scream 6's score now because I was not expecting as low a score for this one, but I guess we'll find out next time, only on Manic Media Dream.